US President Joe Biden will host French leader Emmanuel Macron at the White House in just a few hours. On top of the agenda is their response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, as well as coordinating their approach to China's rising global influence. Mr. Macron will be the first foreign leader to receive a state dinner under the Biden administration, but their meeting is not all roses. The French leader reportedly criticized Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act during a closed-door address to US lawmakers. That policy offers substantial subsidies to American-made products, but EU countries say this would unfairly hobble their industries. Mr. Macron says this act he considers it super aggressive towards European companies, and it would have an adverse impact on the French economy. The White House is maintaining a cordial stance with this crucial ally, saying Mr. Biden and his team are ready to discuss the issue. And for more on this, Nick Harper joins us live from Washington, D.C. Nick, what can we expect from the two leaders' discussions on Ukraine and China?
Well, very broadly, the two leaders have similar positions in that they want to counter China and support Ukraine, but there are some stumbling blocks along the way. And as you mentioned there is this unfairness factor that Macron feels is at play. He's worried about the Inflation Reduction Act, how that will affect European companies. And he says that is very tightly linked to the war in Ukraine. He said during a meeting on Wednesday that Europe is bearing the brunt of that war in Ukraine and feeling the effects much more keenly than the US is as a result of the energy crisis, but also the impact that it's had throughout the European borders. And he feels that the Inflation Reduction Act and the subsidies that will be given to American companies will also put more pressure on French companies and European companies and hurt them even more, potentially leading to job losses. So the two leaders want to remain supportive of Ukraine, but there is that slight concern that the US might be putting off some of the Western allies with the Inflation Reduction Act and the resulting subsidies that could hurt European companies. On China, they both want to counter the rise of Beijing when it comes to Beijing's military, but it's a question of how to do it. For example, in the past, Mr. Macron has said that NATO is not a forum that should be discussing China. They should be more geographically focused on the likes of Russia. But we do know that the White House is pushing France and other European countries to take a stricter line on semiconductors, to do what the US is doing, to restrict the export of those semiconductors to Chinese companies. So that's something that we'll see the president of the US pushing the president of France on. But as I said, those few stumbling blocks could cause some problems as we head into these meetings over the next few hours.
Thanks for that, Nick. Nick Harper in Washington, D.C.